trying to break into the black market. And Khan, he's been isolated, separated from the rest of his team. Scroll, iDrop, just closing in. Rezoy, fortunately, going to be able to lap back around, but the issue now extends. They're not going to be able to make use of that black market like they'd initially been intending. Instead, it seems as though they're going to have to forfeit it entirely to iDrop, Sky, and Scroll unless
correct, yes. In any victory format chat in Fortnite, if you qualify by winning, once you win, you're not allowed to keep playing.
Played there from iDrop, Sky, and Scroll. They understand the landscape of the lobby. Fortunately for the Lone Wolf Lair fight, we've been seeing it going down. It's extended a little bit here as Waze looks as though he's on his last legs. Really nicely played from them.
Waze is just trying to, you know, remain as concealed as possible, but those make quick work of those hidden positions, and that's definitely a tough break though for a team like Monet. And again, Mini, if you haven't had the off-spawn success that you might have been intending for with your team in your group stage, how much of that do you think is actually going to play in to that last chance qualifier? Because this could be some valid experience as far as, like, you know, the off-spawn contention is concerned, but
yeah,
some of these teams, I mean, you get even less lobbies to work with when it comes to the last chance.
Yeah, it's tough. It's difficult because now this is where they start to have to ask questions. Is it the drop spot? Is it the team? Do we need to try and change things up? Is it a strategy situation? Maybe bring in a coach to help out? It is tough for teams when you do have such a disappointing group stage performance, particularly off spawn. You don't even get to play end games, really. And it just becomes so difficult to know where to go next. I think for most teams, the best option is maybe to stick to what you know best. The landscape of the lobby in the LCQ might be a little bit different if they, of course, do make it into that lobby. So, you know, you just have to keep trying new things, and if it all fails, you just have to stick to what you know, I think, at that point.
Couldn't agree more with you. As now taking some peeks into the game plan here from Collapsy, Zany, and Burke, but Collapsy honestly getting clapped from a range. This is not the exchange that he'd been hoping for. More than enough shield, though, to make up for what was lost. It's more so just the fact that they're not getting the damage that they were hoping for, so they're gonna have to look for those surge tags elsewhere. Cringe, Volko, and Kiruo, though, closing in on these outskirt positions. Claystash and Polish, they've got to be wary. But Nemo, zero concern, immediately punished from the skies, forced to now base up, and Flame not even gonna get a chance to get closer to his teammate. They were on the aggression, trying to chase out a solo from earlier, but they're not going to be able to pinpoint Polish just yet. In fact, it might be Cringe's team now benefiting from what Claystash's trio had started.
Yeah, they're just sort of rolling on through, but what I like is they're not just trying to go all out, guns blazing immediately. They need to using that sort of experience that they have to ensure that they're not just going to jump in and have one of them fall. This is a really key situation for them. I think they were 12th going into this game. Of course, sort of 9th when it comes to taking away the first 3 on the leaderboard. So they're still a little bit away from that top 5 for consistency. This is a team that do have what it takes. They have the potential, they have the power, the experience, and of course the drop spot, the loot. And it's slightly surprising they haven't quite been as good as maybe some were expecting, but that's the beauty of this sort of format, is anything can change in an instant. All you need is Kiruo to hit a few big one pumps, frag out in endgame, and things can take a turn for the better as Nemo tries to bait that Chug Jug. Doesn't quite find the connection though, and this is where this fight has started to happen. Unfortunately though for Nemo's team, one of them is of course further away. I think it was Clay, wasn't it, that was a little bit further away. So if Kiruo's team can take advantage, this is going to be a great opportunity. It wasn't Clay, it was the other players. So it looks as though they've been able to do that. Nemo has to try and clutch up, but it's going to be really tough. I think the other player is just going to run away now, and I think that's all he can do.
Yeah, not really any options left over there for Flame. Even making his way towards those reboot cards could prove to be difficult, could prove to be his own demise here. Cringe, Kiruo, Volko. A bit surprised to see them play that as slowly as they did. Almost would have anticipated them to just immediately jump into those boxes from the get-go, but once Nemo's shields have been fully cracked, that seemed to be their green light to feel comfortable with actually going for this full key opportunity. But this is a team that has ample firepower behind it, and they're not the only ones. Putrix's trio, yet another one of our teams that all throughout the course of today's matches, Mini, they have just found themselves again and again and again in somebody else's crosshairs, and that certainly put a big halt onto their mid to late game strategy.
Yeah, and it just hasn't really been the best day for these guys either. Very low down on the leaderboards. That's why they're trying to go for these higher eliminations and try to be a little bit more fraggy here in the early stages of the game. Which is what we've seen them try and do. We have seen them try to fight. We've seen them try their best. Most notably probably against Han's trio, Rizoi and Ankido. We've seen them in lots of engagements against those guys. It just hasn't seemed to have gone their way, but now if they can get the momentum on their side, which these eliminations will do, and will hopefully bring them, they should hopefully be able to find a little bit more success. But deep into Storm here, they need to make their way in. But all you need is just that couple of eliminations, couple of opportunities to pick up some refreshes, and your game is just set.
Yeah, you just don't want to get stuck constantly going for the scraps of the lobby, right? And I think that that's something where not necessarily having as much of these set lobby experiences could definitely start to become a reoccurring threat here for some of these teams, where they're trying to find areas that they can actually establish their surge from. But when you're having to consistently switch it up between each and every match, that tells you a lot about just how difficult it can really be to have a solidified surge strategy online throughout the course of a 5-game series. But Jonah and Alan, they're still caught in the mix of it all. They want to try and play, and we haven't really seen a whole lot of island gameplay. I think a lot of teams just not really preferring to get caught up inside of the gliding. There's not as much safety provided here, Mini.
Yeah, much different to how the island has worked previously, where you have the zip line sort of surrounding it. This time, if you are the first team on the island, you do just have that great advantage over everyone else. All that sort of updraft sort of feature of the island means that everyone around you is just going to be flying around. So that's why we see the other team there just decided to disengage. It was Neo there who went down, and to his teammates now. Actually, it looks as though they might actually be able to pick him up here. Oh, goodness me. Has he crawled off of the island? Wow. Or was it a reboot? It was the reboot. It was the reboot. I was confused for a sec, but yeah, they rebooted and he managed to get picked up via a revive. But that's good. That's fine. It doesn't matter if they get knocked out of the air while rebooting. They're still inside of the box and back as a trio, which is important. But yeah, it's one team on the island at a time, it seems like, at the moment.
Vicious cycle, though, getting rebooted and then immediately knocked yet again. Still going to burn through some very scarce resources, so might be a tough situation for News team to kind of work their way out of. And not really surprised to see teams kind of collecting inside the Storm, hanging around Seaport City. A little bit of build up here, though, and teams knowing that they can just play for the vending machine. Shaco's definitely taking advantage of it, but what Shaco's doesn't have is a whole lot of material, Mini. And at this stage, it can be really difficult to refarm those mats while being on the move.
Yeah, so difficult. I mean, it's not been the ideal day for these guys whatsoever. Landing at Seaport all day, they haven't been able to find their feet inside of these games, lacking eliminations, lacking that consistency towards the sort of mid stages of the game. You can only imagine it's sort of Storm Surge problems at that stage of the game. But they need to make some magic happen here in this penultimate game. Of course, we have one more after this, so there is still time, and it could be important for these teams that are a little bit lower down to get some placement, to give themselves an option in game number 5 to not just have to go all out for the win and maybe, just maybe have a good consistent game to put them into that top 5 consistency.
Karn's at least got enough medkits for his team to be able to tank up a little bit of the storm as they kind of maneuver their way through game 4 here. Venya, Marius, and Pixie, though, Mini. This is easily a team that not a lot of people would have predicted would still be in fighting for their spot. Granted, they've had a pretty strong day. They're in, you know, that consistency qualing threshold, but most people would have expected the win by now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they've been very consistent, as you mentioned. We saw the quick stat right there. They're one of only 2 teams to have placed in top 10 in every single game so far. But yeah, it's not disappointing because we know that this team have been performing well. We know what they can do when it comes to the major finals, but it's definitely a little bit of a surprise, I think, for a lot of people would have expected that team to get a win. There's still time, of course. And for Floki, Snazy, and Ice, these guys also need to have that time. They're a team that sort of in the middle of the leaderboard going into this game. Not so great, but not terrible at the same time. It's not a disasterful situation for them, so they can kind of choose how they want to play this. As for Polish and his trio, it's not quite as good. This is a team that's all the way down at the bottom stage of the leaderboard. You can sort of see why the Storm Surge has been a bit of a problem. They're trying to aggress this team's box, as Floki's team are really trying their best to just back off, put it in reverse, get as much... put as much builds in between you and the opponents as possible. And that's what they're trying to do right now, but it's unrelenting pressure from Polish's trio. And you can see Snazy, Floki, and Ice, they don't need this fight. They're 1,000 above.
Yeah, and they can tell that this other team is desperate for a reason, but Polish finally gonna get punished for some of that over-aggression. But that's just a matter of desperation coming into play here. Rob Seal gonna be next to fall here. Only Madsen left standing with 117 below. Last couple of small shield potions being expended here. Snazy, Floki, and Ice. This is the easiest Siphon material refarm you could possibly hope for. They played their cards right. They knew they weren't necessarily pressured, but now some real pressure might have just come into the mix there. Saw a glimpse of Potus ISW's and Art Skill. That's a team that might also be rearing for a fight here, but Panda, Bene, they've got to get inside zone. They've got damage, but they don't have much else.
No, and they don't have their teammate either, so this is a duo performance that's going to be required right here. I think this is one of those teams that we haven't really seen too much of today, although they have what it takes to perform well. A team that we can definitely expect to see in that last game, I'm sure. Now that they're down to a duo. Trix, Carmino, and Sloxay, these guys are below, so they're really having to put the alarm bells on and say, right, we need to get inside of a box. That's why they're playing those splashes, they're playing the chug jugs, they're trying to heal up as much as possible ahead of getting into these boxes, trying to get that damage as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible, hopefully without losing any of their players as well, as Sloxay is able to get a couple of little tags. Ortmo goes down there as well, so Carmino, Trix were able to find some tags there and pick up a crucial elimination, which does put them above the Storm Surge threshold, but they still need this loot, they still need to take this fight, as they still need that refresh.
Yeah, and it's not like Vasquez and his team are in a much better position, but Vasquez might have just turned the cards here, managing to find a full elimination on Sloxay. That's at least gonna buy him a little bit of Siphon time, but the Storm is relenting. The damage, the ticks, they are just eating away at his HP bar, even with that last Medmis grenade. Vasquez, he can only hope for a little bit of placement points, but what he needed was the win. This is not a winning position for him either. Marius, Pixie, and Vanya. On the other end of that note, though, they are taking over as far as control of the mountain range is concerned.
Yeah, really nicely done from those guys so far. It just seems like whenever they make it to that end stages of the game, they just lose one player. They have a problem that always seems to go wrong for them. They haven't been able to be in control of the entire lobby. They always seem to be scrambling in those sort of mid to low ground layers. So hopefully for them, this game's going to provide them with a little bit more flexibility, freedom to maybe take height, as we know these guys can do, as they continue to just apply pressure to all those players that are trying to make their way in. They're really holding down that sort of north side of the zone. They don't want anyone to be next to them because, of course, if that team do need Storm Surge, they're going to be trouble. And you can just see the unrelenting pressure from this trio coming through. Rezoy was on the receiving end of that, I believe it was, all the way down on HP. Putrix is there as well. Kolb all in that sort of mess. It's a bit of a problem for all of those players because there's so many players now looking at them. One of our top teams, iDrop Sky, and Scroll below on Storm Surge damage. This is something we haven't seen from these guys too often, or indeed at all. Since they've been playing together, they're usually very good at getting damage early on, but they haven't been able to find it this game, Taco, and they're paying the price right now.
Just trying to get whatever damage they can. Vasca, unfortunately, was a little bit of a easier pickup from the Surge tick damage. Just not really an opportunity there for iDrop, but they'll have another opportunity. They're a little bit tough spot as far as being over the water next to Demon's Dojo, but Frenek, Giras, Dinas, they're just trying to see if they can even pave their way up this little bit of an elevation span. Saw one team already starting to commit to a little bit of the high ground, and Scroll, it's definitely come at a cost. iDrop and Sky no longer with them, barely above the damage threshold. Very likely that he's going to choose to try and tank up what he can from the storm itself, but the Water Sprite's only going to buy him a little bit of time. And the moment that he peeps his head over the horizon, someone is bound to take notice. He's not even going to get a chance to get into this next edge of zone. Just too little, too late.
I think they paid the price for a lot of players actually moving towards that Crime City area, fighting there. They were using them for Storm Surge earlier on in the games, and they just lost their Storm Surge farm towards the west, but who haven't lost any of their ability right now? It's Marius, Pixie, and Vanya who are continuing to apply pressure, trying to go for those pre-edits as well. You can see what their focus is here. It's damage, it's now, it's trying to give themselves that ability to play how they want in this endgame. As we do have a height team cementing themselves up there so far with lots of metal builds. It's Serene, Voitus, and that team. So I'm interested to see if they can hold on to this. We've seen a lot of these high ground teams today struggling to find the refreshes, struggling to find eliminations, and ultimately running out of steam. Can they be different?
Problem is this material count doesn't look like a team that's going to be able to hold on to it throughout the course of these moving zones here, Mini, and sure enough, they've already been cut off. Marius, Pixie, Vanya have beat them to the punch as far as controlling the front side is concerned. The moment that they drop, they're going to have to deal with Marius's trio, so they're trying to get whatever damage they can, trying to make them burn whatever materials they can, but Marius, just another simple refresh from his teammates coming into play. They've got such a firm grasp on this secondary height. They're keeping tabs on the team above, but they know it's likely only a matter of time before they come tumbling down. Surely they can't hold on to this forever, so they're trying to make them burn, again, as much material as possible, but Marius just refuses to budge. He's not giving up this secondary height anytime soon. All the while, teams in the low ground just completely destroying each other, but they're getting picked apart from the mid ground.
Yeah, the zone pulls tumbling down the hill now. So for the team on high, they're going to have to drop a lot of layers. You can see how little materials they had right now. You can see that Vanya, Marius, and Pixie went all the way down to the front side, look back, spray up, and then hopefully take high. I think that's going to be something they're going to try and look to do, but no, they do try and go on down, and that's going to be successful for Serene, who does pick up so much damage on them as they do. Cringe, Kiddo, Volko, a team that we haven't seen too much in this stage of the game so far, but a team that has got what it takes. They're playing the low ground, 6 eliminations for them so far as well, but they do need the refreshes as they're plowing on through these low ground layers, trying to claim as much space as possible. But look at their builds, Sacco. They need a refresh now more than ever.
And Volko trying to see if he can make something happen. Ivan, Aryan, though, they're just holding Kiruo. They're going to force him to layer swap even. He's going one up. Volko now trying to get back towards that ultimate low, but he's split. Kiruo has hardly any HP to his name. It's all down practically to Volko as far as extending this team's hopes towards those final moments are concerned, but without any builds, Mini, he needs a shot. He needs it now. Gavix recognizing the fact this guy's got nothing left to work with. Ivan going to start cranking upwards, using this elevation to his advantage, but Kentix might be able to cut him off in the process. It's going to be Kentix's team, actually, that are first to overtake the high ground. Marius's trio now in a whole world of trouble here because can they even make it up the mountain face?
Yeah, the zone pulls all the way back up. Kentic, Chucks, and Firehunter are the team that are in the prime position to take home game number 4 right now. They've been so dominant off spawn all day, and yet again, they are proving why they are dominant in the end game as well. A victory royale in game number 4 sends Kentic, Firehunter, and Chucks straight to the Major 2 finals.
And talk about finding the victory royale just in the nick of time, because they had no other options here. It felt like many. This was not a team that was leading as far as the consistency metrics were concerned. A win and you're in is the dream scenario. So the fact that they were able to collect it just from some solid last-minute positioning, it showcases you can never give up hope entirely. You never know when some of these mountainous terrain zones are going to be able to pan out in your favor. So well played to Firebro's team. An excellent victory royale to punch their way to the Major 2 finals. But Frankie, Levin, Takata, what do you guys got to say?
Thank you very much, Taka. I was looking at the standings just when we went into Game 4, and I was going, hang on a second, where's Fibro? Why is he outside of the top 10 with his trio? And then there they go, maybe I'm the lucky charm, but probably not, because this is a trio that weathered such a difficult storm. I mean, the circles have been pretty cruel, to be honest, for Group 1, but this would seem like the coolest of all, Evan.
Yeah, it doesn't get much cooler than that. I mean, it just kept pulling further and further and further. It's like, come on, give us a break, give us a pullback or two. I mean, you know, they handled it, you know, they made the best of a bad situation there. And another example, you know, like a sort of like an old school CIS player there in Firebro who sort of sneaks his way in. So good to see these guys make it in. And like Minnie very much mentioned, it's like at the end there, it's like they're just a team in the perfect spot to just farm out that situation.
Yeah, I mean, they capitalized on the moment when they needed to most. They were 16th going into this last match. Throughout the day, they never made top 10, not once, until they played this match. And once they were finally in those last moments of the end game, they capitalized on the situation and got that victory royale. I mean, I don't even know if they were going to qualify through consistency before they ended up getting that. So this is huge for them.
This is definitely a trio that needed to step it up, but as you mentioned, Takata, they probably would not have qualified, at least through the Group 1 stage, if they hadn't managed to weather that storm right at the end there. Be lovely to see the standings again if we can. There's a trio that I'd like to talk about because we've got to go to it. Oh, I'm so sorry. You know what, guys? I was getting so into it. It's because it's like back to school day. I forgot. We've got to take a break. We've got to put a pause on this conversation. When we come back, finally, we get to talk about where on earth Cringe, Kaduo and Volko have been. So we'll see you in a few. Congratulations to Kendick, Firebro, and Chucks. We will be seeing them in in a few weeks' time for the Major 2 Grand Finals. Yes, I know, Levin, I'm getting ahead of myself. I am giddy because I can't wait to talk about the chaos of Game 4 tonight. We were saying about how that zone was particularly difficult. I feel like, though, Levin, a lot of the trios today haven't caught a break with the zones. The mountains have been so deadly, it feels like almost every single game.
Yeah, but it's like one of those things where it's like, it's Fortnite, innit? You know what I mean? It's like, all the zones are tough today. Like, I always find it funny when players, like, I'm complaining about that, because I get it. Like, when you play and you're actually in the game and you feel like the game's against you, but it's like, that's just the luck of the draw. And as a fan, just watching, it's more entertaining that way, so I'm never complaining. Well,
let's take a look at the standings if we can, because it'd be interesting to see where we're at. Now, make a note of the fact, guys at home, that 1 to 4, those are duos, trios even, that have already qualified for the grand final. So we'll be seeing them in a few weeks' time. But if you look downwards, Vanya, Pixie and Maris, they've been consistent all night. They've been pulling off limbs exactly when they need to. I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that they might be able to pull off the victory royale, though, still, Takata.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a great job. They've made top 10 every single game throughout the day. They're doing a good job of getting those eliminations, but they just haven't converted any of them to the victory royale yet. But I mean, if you want to end it off in style, then doing it in the last match is the way to go, Levin.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't see, I think there's a bit of bias here from Frankie, to be honest with you guys. Because, you know, Frankie was doing this whole, oh yeah, Podeside's just trying to do the content for M8, give them some more content. You know, Marius and Vanya are doing the same thing. They just want to play all the games out. I didn't hear that from you, Frankie.
Yeah, where's that bias?
Like, Maris has also got a very excitable chat. And again, I just really enjoying seeing Maris brag out. And you know what? You can be biased towards anyone now because everyone has to play in game number 5. And then we'll find out which 10 trios have secured their spot in the finals. There's a trio that I am kind of tracking keenly, though, through these games at the moment because we spoke about them in the pre-show. Cringe is a trio. They are doing so well in their early games in terms of picking up loot. They're getting the train. Sometimes they're going to the black market as well. And yet it's been so rare seeing them convert this to an endgame situation, Takata, until this last game.
Yeah, I honestly thought they were performing better until I saw where they were on the leaderboard, right? Going into this last match, they were in 12th. They were quite significantly, well, out of that qualifying range, right? But they've been doing such a good job getting eliminations in the early and the mid game, but converting those refreshes in those final moments where you need it most to kind of push yourself through that top 10 into more of a top 3, top 4. Even winning the match is what they've had difficulty doing, Levin.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Again, this is a team that is like relatively newly formed, right? You know, they've not had much experience playing with each other. So I guess figuring things out, especially in a lobby like this. But they're thereabouts. You know, with that last game, it really puts them in a stronger position.
Well, at least they're only just sitting outside the top 10. If they are able to convert that early game to success and make it to the final zone, we should be seeing them make it through. There's another trio, though, that are higher up on the rankings, though. Takata, we were having a little chat, and you made a really interesting comparison, even actually in the last post game. Podeside's trio, they're a trio that almost have the opposite approach to the likes of Kidua's trio, and they are making it to the end games.
Right, they're kind of minimizing that risk earlier on in the match and consistently getting to endgame. It kind of reminds me of Tayson's trio before he had the fragging power of Chicho and Haris. They're getting to the endgame, but they're just not getting enough eliminations to set them up for that victory royale. They're not playing, like, making those game-winning plays, but I mean, you can still qualify through consistency, so it's fine. Most likely they'll make it. They've done an amazing job, but I'd like to see them get a victory royale.
Levin, are there any other trios that you're hoping to see a victory royale from potentially in game number 5?
I mean, it quite literally could be anyone's game with game 5 coming up. I would say I still want to see Vanya and them do it, right? Close out the last game in style. I think they've had so many high moments throughout this day that, you know, it'd be a great way to sort of end it off. Some good momentum, especially considering like the teams in Group 1 that qualify always are just sitting out for longer, you know? So ending on a high would be great for them, I think.
Can we take a look at the leaderboard? There's a trio that we haven't spoken about yet. I'm curious to see where they are. And the reason why I want to see them, and it's Voitus, Skriv and Seren, because they're the only trio that we've seen today go for Island. And I find that really interesting because, of course, when you think about some of the big trios in Europe, so, for example, King Queasy, that was a huge trap for them in Major #1. I know we've lost the only mask now, so we're not going to see as many people go for Island, but is it still something that can make or break a game, to Carter?
Yeah, I mean, it's great for conserving materials. It's great for positioning. There are 3 island spawns, right, that happen throughout the match. So depending on where the zone pulls, you can kind of base your rotate sometimes on that if you want to not only get the loot for island, but conserve your match through the rotate. But like you mentioned, Frankie, without the Oni mask, you can't just TP down from the island. You have to kind of fly on in, and it opens up more opportunities to get beamed out of the sky. It's a bit more risky. It's still possible, but you definitely have to be an elite IGL if you want to successfully kind of consistently have those island plays come through.
Very quickly from Levin, do you think it's worth it going for the island?
I mean, if it's convenient, right? I don't think it's a universal yes. I don't think there's many things that are universal yes for teams in Fortnite, right? I think if it makes sense for how the game's playing out, then sure.
All right, well, sound more hype, Levin, because we're going to game number 5 of Group 1. Let's find out who is going to be taking the final victory royale of the night and who is going to be making it to the grand finals.
Thanks so much, guys. And today has been full of pleasant surprises. As far as Group 1 is concerned, I think a lot of people would have anticipated some different names to kind of have already staked their way through victory royales. But as far as that consistency metric is concerned, some last-minute opportunities, and those teams outside of that 6th through 10th position, they're kind of hoping that a team closer to the top of the leaderboard is actually going to be the one to find a victory royale in this last lobby.
Yeah, definitely. I think my biggest surprise from today is that a lot of the top teams haven't necessarily been winning. I think Taysom was the only one that has, but we're going to find out who's going to win in game at number 5.
A lot on the line here for those teams that are just outside of the cutoff threshold here, though. And with only one lobby remaining, one lobby to be the difference, essentially, between having to participate in that last chance qualifier versus knowing you've got your trio seat set up, ready to go for the Major 2 finals. And things are already looking a little bit different as far as Lone Wolf Lair is concerned. Monet probably extraordinarily happy about the fact that they are now uncontested.
Oh, goodness me. They would have been cheering on Kensick, Firehunter, and Chucks in that end game, you have to imagine, because they do not want to be contested by them here in this final game. What it does mean is if they are contesting them, if they do make it through to the Major 2 finals, they might be contesting them there, but we'll have to wait and see. They need a big, big game here to make that happen, so not going to be easy whatsoever, but they're finally uncontested, which I'm sure they'll be very happy about. Maybe we'll see them later on in the game. And for Neo, Jonah, and Alan here, these guys are locking down Kappa Kappa Factory. We saw that in the previous game. Doing incredibly well. And look who's back. Neuer and his team back at Mars Meadows. Cade, Ian, and Ivan have a different sort of problem to deal with again. It looks as though Neuer, though, has been, or Neuer's team has been shut down. Neuer's back as a solo. Ian and Cade down. Ivan having to try and clutch up with the revive here. He might have to do a little bit more than just that as well. He might have to hit a shot, but no. Manages to get Cade up, which is great news for that team. It's now a 2v1 situation. Misha is still down. Could be revived. But you can see Neuer just trying to close in on the duo here. Nearly connects with a shot through the window. This is a difficult decision for him to make right now. Game number 5, all the pressure's on. This is such an important off-spawn battle. Because looking at the standings as well, it's so close. So both teams need this.
You've got to be holding your breath for your fellow Welsh comrade, I'm sure, Minnie. But Cade, Ivan, they might be able to settle the difference here. Kiruo, Cringe, and Volko wasting absolutely no time. Just northwest of Foxy Floodier, they're going to find their first pair of eliminations. So they know they've got to be quick on their feet as far as chasing out Burke is concerned, but they might not fully pursue this. It might be better left to just reaggress after the fact. They want to make sure that they're able to farm the necessary materials that they're after. Get a little bit of a closer insight for what went wrong here, though. Kiruo's team, because securing the train, not going to be in the cards since they were delayed by Collapsy with that surprise contest, it seems like.
Yeah, that's what's happened there, but looks as though they have been able to find a couple of those eliminations. Of course, leaves the train now open for another team, Robcio and Polish's team. This is an important moment for them as well, being able to actually get all of this loot, because of course they are second last on the standings right now, so maybe this is just the catalyst that they need to qualify through. And there's a quick stat, 200 points was enough to qualify in every EU and NA Central group last season, so that's the number that these teams might be looking to try and achieve. For teams like this, though, they don't care about 200 points. They care about victory royales. That's what's going to matter for them in this final game. It's the only choice they have left at this current point. It hasn't been the day to remember for them.
A win's essentially going to be their only way through, unless they want to hope that they can actually have success through that last chance qualifier, but doubt any of our teams are after that. Todaywe SW's art skill, a little bit of a hiccup here early on. Doesn't seem like it's going to deter them too heavily, though. This art skill beaming a player from afar. Some great shots being applied here. Kind of just hovering this flooded frogs vicinity. They know that there's going to be a decent amount of foot traffic through here. Sloxay also continuing to chase out other players. This team might just have enough, though. They're going to manage to find Aryan, and the real issue now posed is whether or not they can actually get out of Masked Meadows. There are so many other teams kind of just surrounding the territory. Teams all looking to try and take advantage of the vault and black markets nearby.
Disaster for Cade, Iron, and Ivan, who are very, very close to getting inside of that consistency qualification. This moment right now for Cade is so crucial. It can shape their entire season. And that's the stakes that are on the line right now. There's absolutely no guarantees that they'll even make the LCQ finals. So these are the moments. This is your chance. You have to treat this like your only chance to qualify through to the Major 2 finals. Ivan does fall as well. So Trix, Sloxay, and Carmino, who also do need this as well. They need to go on a bit of a tear here at the beginning of the game. They need those eliminations. They need to keep themselves going through the game. But I think for now, Cade might just be alive still at this current moment. So he's the last one standing in that team. Yeah, you can just see him in the distance right there. So he's having to put the team on his back right now and find a reboot potentially.
Just so much ground to cover, though. And with two teams closing in on your position, it's not going to be easy to escape as a solo. Monet, Sadie, Wise, they know that they've got their own troubles brewing here by Magic Mosses. And it seems like so many teams are kind of just like, whatever, man, let's just throw everything into playing into the areas that we know are going to have the best resources available. Because regardless of the outcome, it is their best option, considering that they don't have any other lobbies left to work with. It's just the last chance qualifier if you're not able to secure your position in this Game 5. And Monet knows it, but there's just too much commotion outside of their current boxed up position for them to want to fight just yet. They're hoping that they can maybe catch wind of somebody's shields getting cracked from elsewhere. That might be their sign to go ahead and jump in to a box fight, but they're willing to just take their time, play it slowly. They're not looking for any sort of unnecessary risk.
So much patience being displayed from all of these teams in this area. You have teams that are lurking nearby, waiting for the moment to pounce. You have players inside of the box fights. They don't want to get too aggressive right now. Sloxay, Carmino, they're looking to get aggressive as they sneak up onto Misha. Gets a huge amount of damage onto him, but it's not going to be enough to take him out, as now the full trio do try and get inside of the box. Hits a great shot to Sloxay, but it's a 2 versus 1 in that particular box. Not gone Sloxay's way, and this sneaky play might just end up hurting this team. And this is a team, of course, that do need this game to be a good one. Outside of that consistency, haven't got a victory royale, of course, yet. So it's gone from bad to possibly even worse for this team, as that sneak play just didn't work out in their favor whatsoever. Carmino and Trix are the ones that need to try and clutch up right now. Can he connect with some shots? Not gonna happen. Misses the shot. And Noya, Yasin, and Misha are able to just turn the tides on that fight entirely. Well done to that trio.
Yeah, Misha is the last person to get a taste of his own medicine, right? I can respect the attempt, but Trix's trio had exactly one shot opportunity apiece. The moment that they weren't able to find that knock and confirm the elimination onto Misha, that was the open invitation for things to completely turn against them. Zaya, Bimbo, and Darky, though, hoping for a different outcome. Mass Meadows just continues to be as poppin' as ever, but they can recognize the fact that there are pulse scanners in play. They're not willing to encroach upon the position just yet. They don't want to be openly revealed. They know even if they just choose to play scavenger, they could definitely still aim to be aggressive with the teams that are kind of just rotating around the outskirts of Mass Meadows. And Darky won't have any other options. They just don't have the opening they're hoping for. And Cade, we are just watching the demise of the Welsh Fear Mini.
Yeah, not an ideal situation for Cade right now. I mean, it was not great off spawn, the way that they weren't able to convert that fight into a win for them. Then, of course, all the other teams that come on through, and the entire lobby right now, they're just like vultures. Any team that's trying to fight, there's going to be teams that are not willing to jump in box, but are willing to third party, that'll be looking for moments to strike. And unfortunately for Cade, he's going to have to count his last few seconds here in group number 1, because you've got a full trio, Neuer, Yasin, and Misha, who are putting the final nail in the coffin for Cade, unfortunately, which has been a really interesting off-spawn fight to watch all day. We've seen both teams having their go at it, having success in varying degrees. Even this team on screen that have been able to sort of switch drop, find a little bit more success, and then return. But unfortunately for Cade's trio, it does go the way of Misha in this final game, which is important for them because they need a good game here in order to qualify through here into the Major 2 finals.
Cade knew it was wraps. There was just nowhere left to run. It was so obvious to Misha's trio that there's a reason this team is shooting from a distance and the shots are not being returned. So they knew that that was just all too favorable of a spot for them to take advantage of. But Kiruo, Cringe, Volko, we saw the leaderboard heading into this final match mini. They need this game, and it's crazy to think about because their play-ins, day 1, they were practically qualified for this group stage, right? Just off of 1 day of play-ins. It still did decently on the second day as well, but it's more so the fact that we've seen them not have that same level of success here in this group.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the level of the lobby, the upgrade over the play-ins, and especially since this is a trio that got together for the play-ins. Cringe and Volko play with Cade for a lot of this season. It can really test you when you're a team that maybe hasn't got as much experience together. You haven't got that experience to rely on when you do have troublesome moments. So that could be a reason for that. But they're in a good position, and as is Giras, Dinas, and Franek. This is a team that have been performing very well today, very consistent throughout all of their games, of course. They've only had 1 game outside of that top 10. And I like this trio. This is an interesting one. I know that last season, Dinas and Franek actually played together, not with Giras, but Giras didn't make the Major 1 final, so he was sat in core with him and the entire team. So he thought, you know what, I've coached him, let's just pick him up. These guys are absolutely goated, and now he's here playing with them. He'll want to take them to his first Major finals of the year. So it's nice to see that players do have that ability to just sort of go from coach to player and leading that team to success. I dropped Sky and Scroll by no means already qualify, which is quite a surprising statement to say at this point, Taco. I would have expected them to already be through, let alone not getting a victory royale, but also not actually confirmed in terms of consistency.
Yeah, they're definitely a little bit further up in comparison to some other teams in the lobby, but they can't get comfortable by any means. You don't want to find yourself autopiloting, but I hope that doesn't deter them from going for some early skirmishes, because we know how much firepower they actually have. I mean, even just stemming back to the Game 1 performance, after what we witnessed, to think that they're still competing and weren't able to secure a victory royale earlier on in the day. It's definitely surprising, to say the least. And Vanya, Pixie Marius joining them on that same note. Another team that you just would have expected to have made it through by now. Granted, they are basically guaranteed because of where they sit as far as consistency is concerned. Polish, though, wrong neighborhood. He at least made it onto the launch pad, but unfortunately, Zinx just choosing to continue trying to close in. Madsen not going to have the same level of success. Samp's patience paying off dividends currently. That first elimination is going to be a huge thorn in the side here. Robcio and Polish now having to reconsider how they actually want to play this one forward.
Crucial moments. I mean, when you're in game 5 right here, we spoke about that team. They need a massive game, second last on the leaderboard. Every single move you make, every single edit, every single build place just has that increased level of meaning, that increased pressure. And unfortunately for Polish's team, it looks as though the pressure's gonna no longer be a thing, but not for a good reason, as I think they're gonna be out of the lobby, back to reassess. Zinx, Brownie, Sampy, all of these guys continuing their pressure, their aggression. And Polish is the last player standing. His health is dwindling through the storm. There's only a matter of time right now before Sampy can take him out. That's their 4th elimination of the game. I'm excited to see what this trio can do here in this game now, bolstered by those eliminations.
It's a huge learning lesson, though. No launchpad is considered a safe rotation, no matter how deep inside the storm you might feel yourself to be. As Eltenzi, then Napuzo, they're going to be the ones looking to try and take advantage of the island spawn currently, but keep in mind, Mini, when you're talking about teams that are just outside the realm of reaching the consistency measure for the leaderboard, Dendipuza's team kind of skirting the line here. They do need a really strong pop-off performance here.
Yeah, they do, and they're doing everything they can to get that with that island. For Neuer, Yasin, and Misha, this is a team that we saw doing very well off spawn. Hopefully they'll be able to continue that, and this replay shows that they are. So nicely done there to clutch up, get his team back alive, get his team back standing. And it's moments like that that you can really look back on sometimes when you at the end of the season and say, yeah, that was the moment that really was the catapult for our entire season, particularly now that Cade, of course, is not going to be featuring in the Major 2 finals as of right now. They'll have to qualify through that last chance qualifier. Maybe they'll be a little bit more confident about potentially landing at Mars Meadows. Of course, there's other teams that might be landing there, but just that confidence is going to be so much more important.
XW's, Potosa, and Artskill are also a team that's definitely got a solid amount of confidence that they're working with, and sitting at 204 points currently, you have to anticipate that they are pretty much set, but you still want to close things out in a clean fashion. Even if you know that you're basically guaranteed off of the consistency measure, why not make it flashy to close? Why not showcase? And one big thing, Minnie, that we were asking for from this team was to actually develop consistency in comparison to some of the woes that, you know, trailed them in that first major. They're definitely looking to try and shift that conversation for Major 2.
Sure, and it's not a really good start for them in terms of how this major is kicking off. Kiduo, Volko, Cringe. Likewise, they've been pretty solid today. Haven't been absolutely incredible, but each player has the ability, has the talent to make it to the finals. And I think this is a team that we would expect to see in the major finals, especially with how much experience all 3 players have playing together, and of course now as a full trio.
Bit of a rough spot there, though, for Cringe's team. And after a certain point, even some of our more experienced players, you can expect a little bit of nerves to sort of factor in, because we did see, while Cringe and Volko and them have had a relatively decent day, they haven't had a strong enough day to 100% confirm themselves. That's what they're looking to do in this final game 5 here. And time could potentially be running out, or it could be working out in their favor, but they've got to keep steady tabs on the French trio that was above them. Good overview, though, of what's actually taking place on that mountain span, as surge damage does seem to be a huge threat here currently.
Sneaky beaky here for Kiduo, Volko, Cringe. They're trying to make sure they're not heard going deep into the storm right here. Interesting play. They're just trying to take advantage of that dead side. Of course, they spotted a couple of medkits over there, so Volko's going to try and make those his. you can just see they're making this incredible storm tank. And yeah, it's going to be the med mist that he ends up grabbing. Incredible storm tank to rotate actually around the hill, back up from the other side, claiming that position, not only in a really nice sort of uncongested position, but also taking Brownie and company by surprise potentially in the back. So they've got to be extra careful as to who's coming up behind him there.
Risk first reward could definitely be the game changer there. That's for sure. Marius, Vanya, and Pixie, though, they're just going to play steady and true. It's something that we've definitely witnessed pretty strongly from this trio throughout the course of the day. Although they haven't been able to get the Victory Royale, Game 5 is still an opportunity to do so, and it would definitely help some of those teams just outside on that top 10 area of the leaderboard. But Vanya, Marius, Pixie, they've caught wind of Ricky's trio just completely spraying down those builds. They know the lobby focus is in that direction, so why not join the fray?
Much more peaceful environment here for iDrop, Sky, and Scroll, who haven't really had a peaceful day whatsoever. Gonna be able to make
Great
a nice
zone
big
pull.
base here, though. Really nice zone pulls. They can spend a little bit more materials, but it's definitely been a bit of a topsy-turvy day in terms of this trio. I feel like they haven't really been a trio for a lot of it. Of course, we remember that amazing clutch in game number 1 from Scroll and Sky. Where would they be if they didn't have that amazing clutch? So I think it's definitely been a bit of a rocky road for them so far today. They can make it all good if they qualify through here at the end. It'll all be forgotten, I'm sure, but hopefully something that they can learn from as they progress through this season. Marius, Vanyak, and Pixie, though, trying to make the way up this hill. It's actually pulled back towards the south, so it'll be a little bit difficult for all those teams that did make that dead side rotate. I think it's going to be no problem for these guys. They don't have triple kneecapper, which is a little bit of a disadvantage, you have to say, but as long as they can find their way through this path, they should be okay, Taco.
They might even be able to just collapse on a team on their trek up the mountainside.
Yeah.
You can imagine that not every single one of these trios is going to be in prime positioning or prime loadouts, but they might have a kneecapper or two if Pixie and them can find the eliminations. Lucia and Gabix, though, at the very bottom, just working their way through on the backside of the zone, and they might have to tank a couple of storm ticks in the process, but it's definitely a worthwhile sacrifice if it means just a little bit more placement. Considering their current position, they do look relatively set, but they want to play it as safe as possible, especially because they know that they're a duo. Unfortunately for them, Darky, Bimbo, seems like they've taken notice, as now Belusi going to be forced to come to a halt, but the material is running incredibly thin. They've got to make sure that their next couple of shots are as accurate as ever. They cannot afford to miss when dealing with a full trio.
Yeah, Storm Surge looking a bit of a problem, of course, there. It's not ideal. And of course, we saw the stat earlier. 200 points should do it if we base it on history. Historical data shows that 200 points is enough. It was enough on both EU and NA. So that's the sort of prime target for a lot of these players. For Weddy, Kolb, and Putrix, this is a team that we've seen a lot of today, but not for the good reasons necessarily. Only on 45 or 48 points, I should say. A team that really need this game to go successfully for them. That's why they're really playing for height early on. Of course, it has its benefits, Taco, but when you play height this early, you do lose out on a lot of those materials, and you have to invest them. You're at mercy to whatever the zone decides to do. So it can work out in their favor, but with how this game's going to go, you just don't know, because so many teams also need that victory as well.
Got to be nailing more of those shots as well to try and control the flow of those teams that are looking to play through that secondary height position, especially a team like Vanya, Marius, and Pixie. Ooh. There's the connections that we're hoping for from Letty onto Ice, and that's definitely going to put a bit of a halt there. Snazy and Floki know that they're going to have to wait for Ice to actually get a little bit of recuperation on those shields. Way backside of the zone, though. Weddy, Kolb, Putrix, just trying to apply whatever damage they can. They want to make sure that they are staying well above the damage threshold should it come into play here. They also just want the additional points. Every little bit counts at this point.
Yeah, it does. They're not going to be able to get enough points to qualify through consistency, and oh my goodness. You cannot be open for more than a second, because it's beams like that when you're on height, which has opened the door for teams down below to then think, okay, one of them's beamed, let's go on up. So they've got to watch out for those angles. And I think the zone, yeah, really, really favorable zone for them. Pulls back and also back over the hill, which is going to be so difficult for those teams that did decide to rotate and play that sort of lower section of the map. These zones today, Taco, have been unrelenting, but for a team that's on height, you would expect them to ride out this high ground position, given that they're now in the prime position to take over this entire lobby.
It's really just Vanya, Marius, and Pixie, as well as even Sky, Scroll, and iDrop. You can't afford to let them out of your sights for even a moment. Kolb and Qtrix, they've got other plans in mind, but Volko, Cringe, Kiduo, they're just going to continue slow and steady, working their way up, tarping their way through the tunnels, coming into effect here. But Scroll, Sky, iDrop, they recognize the fact teams scurrying overhead. Gita's going to manage to find an elimination, much needed as well. Running a little bit low in that materials refresh as well as that damage threshold. Going to bode more in his favor. But Volko, that is a massive shot onto Vanya. A huge threat just eliminated in front of his eyes. He knows it's going to be a weakened trio now. Marius and Pixie. If anybody can do it, it's certainly these two. But they are in a world of hurt still. A duo having to scale this mountain face and deal with all the teams dogpiling around them.
Such an important end game here as well for Sky, Scroll, and iDrop. They're not quite safe and secure yet. They need to make this game count. We've seen them do it on multiple occasions. Giras now as a solo. I think he might just have it all locked up, but he's going to try and clutch up as much as he can. We spoke about it earlier, how this is a player that was picked up 2 amazing fraggers for this. Season. It's now him that's going to have to solo clutch to success here. Kiduo, Volko, Cringe, they're a team that does need this to be a very good game as well. We see 2 of our teams that need to make sure they make it into this end game as late as possible, at the very least, in order to qualify through to the Major 2 finals here. Huge stakes, Taco.
The high ground, it's getting messy as ever. Scroll managing to actually break his way back through the scaling, this down face of the mountainside. Giras still clinging on for dear life. He has ample build, so he can just choose still in tow. We know that they're relatively well off, but how firmly can they cement themselves in their position on that leaderboard? That's what we have to question at this point. They're still stuck inside the secondary height layer. Scroll, iDrop, they seem like they want to go for the low ground takes. They've got full control of front side for the time being, and now they're going to opt to push back and spray. Qtrix, absolute catastrophe here with the way the zone is pulled straight into the crevice of this valley.
And now look who it is. It's Misha, it's Noya, it's Yasin, a team that have had a bit of a difficult day overall. You have to say they're looking not so difficult right now, all the way up on high ground. Looking at their builds, it might just fizzle out a little bit earlier than they expect. And this is what we've seen from a lot of teams today. Can they find that refresh that's going to keep them going? They have the heal condition, they have that exotic chug jug. As they're spraying on down below, they have to use every single one of those medium bullets to make sure that nobody can take this high ground off of them. Because this zone, this is in a very mountainous area. Things can change so quickly, Taco.
Misha's been a consistent finals contender as well. It would be a travesty to think that they could miss out, but Misha gonna be eliminated from the skies. Scroll, Sky, iDrop now stuck inside of all the calamity taking place inside of this mid-ground. Pixie trying to see if he can scurry around, but Pixie shut down. That's gonna be the first knock. Marius, though, he can't find the confirmation that he needs until he gets it. Cringe put down just in the nick of time, and sure enough, Cringe, that refresh, all these loot, all that goodies, but Marius, he's not gonna be able to make use of it. Sky collapsing from behind. It's the last thing he would have ever seen coming. But Noah, he's trying to keep the dream alive. 14 Misha, Yasin as well. It's only Sky underneath them, and sure enough, Sky's gonna join the elimination count here. Noya, Misha, and Yasin with 12 eliminations. All they need is to find the final member here. Scroll keeping the dream alive, but he can't do it. And Scroll, sure enough, caught at the very bottom of this hill face. Many You couldn't have asked for a better closing. The absolute Cinderella story here for Misha and Yasin. They needed this one so badly. And the fact that they're able to convert Game 5 into their victory royale, beautiful scenes.
Wow, I mean, I was almost shaking for them there at the end because the stakes were so high. Sky and Scroll and iDrop, they'd already qualified. Whether they won or not, it didn't matter. But for Noya, Misha, and Yasin, that was a crucial victory royale that will make sure that they are going to be featured in that Major 2 finals. They've had such a rocky day so far today, or in the day entirely. They've had so many difficult situations. They've gone down off spawn. They've had a solid game here and there, but overall, it had to be done via victory royale, and that is what they've done to secure themselves a spot in the Major 2 finals.
All I can think back to is that initial survival point for Misha when those shots weren't able to confirm the knock onto him earlier on over by Mask Meadows, and then the fact that they're able to transition from that sort of position, finding those early eliminations. It seems like they were able to convert it almost flawlessly. Those zones have been brutal throughout the course of today here, Mini, but it's been an absolutely fantastic Group 1 performance. That's going to do it for us, though. Games 1 through 5 all cleanly wrapped up. We'll get a chance, though, to review what actually took place as far as the leaderboard is concerned with our desk.
Thank you so much, guys, and congratulations on making yet another successful duo debut in the FNCS. There's something about that, Taka. I think she's the perfect partner. Mini Miner will see you next week as well. So let's talk about this wonder trio, Noya, Yasin, and Misha, because they had a great Game 4. They showed the potential there, and then Game 5 got off to a fantastic start. They wiped Cade's trio off the map, the Welshies. I'm so sorry, Mini Miner. And then they made good on that promise by taking the victory royale to Carter.
Yeah, I mean, they needed that victory royale. They were going against iDrop in those final moments, but iDrop, based on that placement, he was already qualified through consistency. But Noya, Misha, and Yasin, they were 21st going into this match. They literally needed that victory royale. There was only 2 games today that they didn't get eliminated in the early game, and they got 6th and a VR11.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you look at how things have played out for a team like this who spends most of the day fighting off spawn, that off-spawn battle got quite a bit personal, right? One of the beauties of this format is the fact that, like, when teams win and leave the lobby, it's like, okay, we can't just move POIs. These guys were consistently just fighting that mask, like they weren't giving it up. And I think based off of how that last game went, it's like the team you're fighting against probably won't be able to qualify now. It must feel good for them to get that win and sort of push those guys to the side.
Yeah, especially if they got Misha in the trio. You would have thought he'd be like, oh, let's just change drop spot. Like, he's no stranger to changing his drop spot from game to game, and yet they stuck it out, and in the end, it came good. So let's take a look at the 5 trios who have booked their spot in the Major 2 Grand Finals via Victory Royale. So if you can cast your mind back to a mere few hours ago, 11, Dexy, Hutty, and Artist, they made their Victory Royale look simple.
Yeah, no, I think, again, a team that a lot of people could see being in the finals of the Major, right? You know, you look at Dexy, Hutty, Artist, plenty of experience in EU FNCS. All of them have played in finals before, and so no surprises to see them get it done.
Yeah, then we also have Stormy, right? I mean, a blast from the past. Last finals that he qualified to was Chapter 3, Season 3, I think. Literally over 3 chapters ago, but they got the job done. So excited to see some veterans.
Yeah, last time Stormy Rat was in a final, me and you were casting EU, right?
Yeah.
So definitely a bit of a flashback. It feels like it's been a long time since then. Game number 3, Hatris, Haris, Tayson, and Chicho got it done. I think when you're looking at the big favorites in the lobby, this was a team I think people would have expected to do it. Maybe not by the win though, which I guess maybe would be a bit of a surprise, right? Obviously last Major, they didn't win a game when they were playing with Trulex instead of Haris. This Major though, they're able to get the win. That extra bit of firepower was enough to get it done.
It feels like the big names in the lobby, obviously outside of your Tayson really, are trios that have put up really consistent performances today. So let's see who made it through to the majors from consistency points. The majors, I should say, the major finals. Vanya, Pixie, Marius, expected really to Carter.
Yeah, the top 2 3 even was pretty expected. Well, not top 3 actually, because iDrop, Sky, and Scroll were on that borderline going into the last match, but with that second place, they qualified. Also, Cringe, Volko, and Kiduo, they were out of qualifying rage going into the last match and chose not to drop at the same spot they've been dropping throughout the whole day, and it still played off well. They got 3 eliminations off the start of the match and picked up even more refreshes later on, and truly just did enough to put themselves in the major finals. So I love to see it.
I'm looking at this consistency list and it's a stacker. It's an absolute stacker. I mean, you know, if you had told me that was the winners list at the start of the day, I would have been like, yeah, makes sense. That's a good prediction. Look, Kiduo, Volko, Cringe, they got it done towards the end. I think they were a team that, you know, was a bit up in the air because when you're a slightly newer team and you have this firepower and you're landing at the train, people are probably expecting a lot. And at times it was close, but it's good to see them sort of get it done there towards the end. I think this is a team I really am excited to see in the major finals. Kiduo, Volko, Cringe, all players with experience in that field. But altogether, I think there is something, you know, some potential there to build off of now.
What was really interesting, though, to jump in here, guys, was that they didn't go for the train strat this time. And yet it felt like it was their best game to Carter when they actually went away from something they've been practicing.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have as much of, you know, the top tier loot, but they had enough loot to make it happen. They still got the refreshes and they still played well. I'm curious to see what kind of spot they're going to be able to secure in the major finals as more and more trios qualify. But overall, I think they're set up to potentially kind of be some underdogs that can make something happen.
Looking at page 2 of the standings, guys, there are definitely some names who I am expecting to see in the last chance qualify. If you cast your eye to number 17, Floki, Snazy, and I surely 11. That's going to be a trio to contend with when it comes to those last 3 spots.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of a tough day for these guys. They were initially going to be contesting at Shiny, decided not to do that. They decided they wanted to, you know, land at a spot, you know, be uncon at the Mosses, and it didn't quite go their way. And so, not to, you know, stir the pot a bit, but maybe French teams should just keep contesting people. I don't know. Like, you know, everybody complains, but maybe they should just keep doing it, you know? So I expect those guys to do good, though, in the last chance, and I hope you see them make it through.
So 11's now farming for the French viewership to Carter. Is there anyone that you wanna try and get engagement from now? Any trios you want to mention?
I'm not gonna do any farming here, no glazing so far. We'll see in the next groups if maybe I'll do some more of that.
Okay, one more question then. Have we seen our Major 2 Blade of Champion winners today, Levin?
I am going to say we have not. I'm going to say we have not. I think...
I like rivalry, right? I like kind of making things a little interesting, but there's not one clear winner on EU. There's a few options, but I don't think that we've seen them today either.
You know what, Levin, I let you get off lightly there. I interrupted you. Give me your reasoning. Come on. Be brutal. Come on.
My reasoning is part of the reason why I think every person watching this right now should keep watching. When you look at Group 2 and Group 3 next week, we got some amazing teams still to come, and that's why.
You know, we've got so much more amazing plays to be happening, not just in Major 2, but don't forget May the 10th. It's our first big LAN of the year, the Gallon Center, Los Angeles. The Pro-Am is coming your way. Don't forget to get your tickets. We can't wait to see you in the City of Angels. And I can't wait to see what happens next week as well and what happens in North America. So stick around because in a few hours' time, Zeke and the gang will be there to talk you through the action. They'll even be on this channel, I should say. So for now, boys, I bid you adieu, and all I have to say is sound that horn.